Hi, 10th graders. So we're going to do an assignment. It's the post-impressionary art, and it's going to be inspired by Vincent van Gogh. What we're going to do is, I know you've been learning in health class about mental health, and so today we're going to talk about Vincent van Gogh and how he kind of did his art to show emotion and get a psychological response. And I'm gonna put together a project, and it's gonna be about 3 weeks. We're gonna be working on this. So this is gonna be my smart board since we have COVID. We're gonna do it from home. So to start off, first I need to make sure everybody has their waiver from their parents, because this is a sensitive topic. You're going to need a parent waiver. If you don't, you could head to the library and you'll have a different assignment. So post-impressionary art was from the years 1886 to 1905. Artists were expressing emotion and trying to get a psychological response from the viewers. And they were using the world around them to express their art. They used bold colors and expressive and symbolic images. So 4 of those artists that we're going to look at is Vincent van Gogh, and I'm going to mess up the names, Paul Cézanne, Paul Gauguin, and George Stuart. I have a film and it'll tell you those names. So here's our first film, and it's a short video, but it tells you a lot about post-impressionism, okay? Technical difficulty. Let's see if it'll play.
Post-impressionism emerged around 1885 and held sway in the artistic world until around 1914. Post-impressionist artists aimed to make art an emotional experience through the use of symbolism, vibrant colors, and captivating forms. Post-impressionism can be thought of as an exaggerated form of the impressionism that came before. Like impressionists, post-impressionists focused on what viewers might see if they only caught a glimpse of the scene portrayed. A major difference between the two movements was that instead of focusing on displaying light and color in a naturalistic manner like impressionists, post-impressionists used more calculated juxtapositions and symbolism as tools to convey meaning in their work. Another difference was that post-impressionists chose rural scenes and everyday subjects for their paintings over Impressionism's high-fashion urban scenes. The impressions recorded by post-impressionists were less journalistic and more highly personal, and artists' thick brushstrokes drew attention to the expressivity of their art. The post-impressionist movement was initiated by a few independent artists. Paul Cézanne was the oldest of this group, which also included masters like Vincent van Gogh, Paul Gauguin, and Georges Seurat. Seurat had begun experimenting with color even before the post-impressionist movement took shape. He placed dabs of pure color next to each other instead of mixing them, like traditional artists did. That way, the viewer's eye could blend the painting's colors, which meant that the same painting could appear differently to different individuals. Cézanne used thick daubs of color throughout his work, often applying the paint with a palette knife. He experimented with reducing objects to basic geometric forms. Cézanne portrayed various elements as simplistic shapes and laid them out flat on the canvas, giving a decidedly abstract look and feel. His greatest complaint with the Impressionist tradition was that it did not allow artists to refine and harmonize the visual elements in the picture. This was the basis for the Cubist movement, which would grow out of post-impressionist art. Cézanne revived interest in the still life, which had been neglected by artists for nearly 300 years. His thick daubs of paint added dimension and expressivity to the still life objects. His real innovation, however, was incorporating multiple perspectives of still life objects in a single work. One example of this is the scene of apples spilling across a table next to an imbalanced stack of cookies in Cézanne's still life, The Basket of Apples. The cookies and apples in the painting are portrayed with multiple viewpoints, multiple locations, and moments in time. While Cézanne specifically avoided playing with light and shadow as his Impressionist predecessors did, the objects he features are vibrant and vivid because of his textured application of carefully juxtaposed color gradations. For Georges Seurat, it was Impressionism's lack of lines and detailing that led him to post-Impressionist style. Seurat's technique is known as pointillism, although he preferred to call it divisionism, referring to his calculated division of color splotches to retain color's vibrancy, instead of watering down colors and mixing them. Seurat wanted viewers to mix the vibrant colors using their own imagination and eyes. With this technique, Seurat could bring in subtle shading and some very interesting color blends. Seurat's large-scale painting, A Sunday Afternoon on the Island of Le Grand Jeté, is his most widely recognized work. Le Grand Jeté depicts boaters, animals, and a fashionably dressed Sunday crowd taking in the view of the Seine. Seurat admired the classic art of the Renaissance and Egyptian art, Greece and Roman. The large-scale and serious tone of his best-known painting hint at many classical themes. Unlike classic paintings, however, Seurat's work is not meant to prescribe or teach. The relationships between the people in the painting are up for interpretation, and the abstract impressions of their faces invite viewers to decide what their feelings and thoughts might be. Although post-Impressionists like Cézanne and Seurat made their displeasures with the Impressionist technique known, they were still heavily influenced by this style. Another well-known artist from this time is Vincent van Gogh. He moved further away from the Impressionist ideas than Seurat and Cézanne did. Along with his troubled artist personality, Van Gogh is remembered for his masterpieces, The Starry Night, Sunflowers, and Café Terrace at Night. For Van Gogh, art was about color above all else. In this respect, he had an Impressionist mindset, but the scenes Van Gogh depicted were more of an instinctive response than a scientific study of the scene. That meant he did not always do the meticulous study of the light and color found in nature before transferring his impressions onto canvas. His science was juxtaposing colors which would enhance or understate certain elements of his work. Van Gogh also moved away from realism, but he never overlooked the emotional aspect of his art. In this respect, I would say that Van Gogh was a particularly spiritual post-impressionist. Paul Gauguin is another spiritual post-impressionist. In his painting, the post-impressionism emerged around.
So there you saw that post-impressionism, they didn't really, it was away from the realistic, the sharp lines, the vivid colors, where the impressionism, they want your mind to imagine and create the picture. So here we have like Vincent van Gogh's self-portrait up here at the top. You can tell, I mean, our mind puts together his face and his eyes, but it's not crystal clear. So our mind is kind of blurring it together and making the piece. Here's they're just examples I have here of some works from these people, artists. And then this was a movement in the 19th century in France, and it was led by Paul Cézanne and Paul Gauguin, Vincent van Gogh, and Georges Seurat. We just heard the right pronunciations of their names. So this is going to be Vincent van Gogh's story, And this leads us into the mental health. He had trouble with mental health. There is different theories. We're gonna go off of the main theory of his mental health and depression. They speculate he was bipolar. He did he spent time in an asylum. He cut off his ear and eventually committed suicide. We're going off of that. I want you guys to research and you'll find out there's other theories that his ear was cut off by another man and that he was shot. But for this project, I want you guys to focus on the main theory of Vincent van Gogh. So here's his story.
You probably know me already. I'm famous the world over. But do you know my story? Brabant, painted just as I remember it. That's where I grew up. I was different from the others. Stubborn, always in trouble at home and at school. Things were better outdoors. I loved being out in the fields. Do you know what you want to be yet? Well, I certainly didn't. I was an art dealer in Paris and London, a teacher in England, a priest in Belgium. I tried the lot. Nothing worked out. My brother, Theo, my best friend, had an idea. Vincent, you're good at drawing. Why don't you do something with that? Well, he was right. I was always drawing, and I could learn how to paint. There was no time to lose. Practice, practice, practice. I was unstoppable. Anton Malm, my cousin, and a famous artist, taught me how to paint in oils. I got my first commission, drawing cityscapes of The Hague, the train station. What a building, all that glass. I wanted to show real life, nature, the lives of farmers, what I saw as I felt it. That's what I wanted to paint, something good, something with soul in it. And look, there they are, their weather-beaten faces in the shadows, sitting in the light of a small lamp, poking their calloused hands into the dish of potatoes they themselves have sown and harvested. Others didn't think much of it. That woman's nose looks like dice at the end of a pipe stem. Even Theo thought it was too dark. But I had started. I was an artist. Theo, I owe you so much. When I came to Paris, I lived with you. When I wanted to paint, you paid for my paints and brushes. And me, I was insufferable, living only for my art. Late-night discussions with innovative artists like Lautrec, Bernard, Gauguin, about contrasts, colours, loose brushstrokes. But the work wasn't selling. I rarely had money for models, so I'd often end up looking in the mirror. After 2 years, I was fed up with the city. I headed south, to the light, the colours. That's where I painted the colours of the wheat, of the night, and the sea, which had many more colours than just blue. Green, purple, blue, pink. The sea changes colour like a mackerel's skin. I looked around me and found beauty in almost everything, even in these withering sunflowers. I had big plans for this yellow house. It's where I wanted to work with others, to create a new kind of art. But only my artist friend Gauguin came south. We had the most fierce discussions about art. What should you paint? What you see with your eyes, or what you see in your mind? One evening, things started to go wrong. I just wasn't myself anymore. I cut off my left ear. I was sick. I had myself admitted to hospital. But I didn't stop. I worked on, like some kind of painting locomotive. And slowly I got my life back on track. In the countryside, just north of Paris, with Theo close by, I worked incessantly. My head was on fire. My paintbrush swept back and forth until... Now you know my story. The story of a misunderstood, stubborn man who wouldn't give up. A story about needing to do what it is that you're good at. So tell me, what are you good at?
So you could see, that's the main theory, but his use of colors and by emotions, he painted some really unique art that has been famous. He never sold a painting in his lifetime, but now we all know him. So this next one is just for fun. It's Van Gogh, the King of Selfies, by means of self-portraits. Because this day and age, selfies are a big part of what we see in all the children's phones and on social media. So let's look back in the 1800s, what a selfie would look like. So you can see those are all Van Gogh, and he painted himself because, you know, like the video said, he saw himself in the mirror. Okay, so now I'm going to show you some examples that I have of using post-impressionism, and it's the use of colors. So the easiest way to do it would be like taking 3 colors and blotching them out to make a background or your focus in the picture. So here I have recreated Vincent van Gogh's Starry Night. And you can see I've used greens and yellows and blues with yellows in the blues. I've got reds. And you kind of, your eye blends it together. This is done with pastels. And with this kind of art, you don't blend. It's on its own. So it puts it together. So that's one example. Here's just basic trees and hills. You can tell it kind of, I think it's expressive. This one I did to show you how you can change the colors, and I used like pink and purples and blues, and then right here, and then up top I used the dark blues and light blues. And then I moved down in the question mark into dark greens and blues, and then finalized with the dark greens and light greens. And then here I just played with the colors. This is kind of my question to you, is how are you going to portray through your art, and we'll get to it soon, of what mental health and how you want to express it. Here's just a sun. Now this one, the question mark and the other ones were done with pastel. This one's done with sparkly pens and glitter pens and metallic pens. And I just played with colors. So now the next one is, these are what you're learning in health class, mental health disorders. So we have anxiety disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, depression, dissociative disorder, eating disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, psychosis, schizophrenia affective disorder, and schizophrenia. Now, you can also show what it looks like to get help for these disorders. You can show what it might be to struggle with these disorders, or even abstract by creating emotions to get a psychological response from your viewer. Also, there's mental health crises, and what can you do to help a person in a mental health crisis? And what would that look like? Or how would you help someone you know, maybe a friend who's struggling with mental health? Or you could show how to open a dialogue about mental health, because it is a touchy subject. It's hard to talk about sometimes. So I want you to use Vincent van Gogh in post-impressionism form, but show me what it would look like, or show me a disorder through your art. So what I want you to do is generate and conceptualize artistic ideas. So I want you to think of organize and develop your ideas, refine and complete your ideas. If you're struggling, try to find strategies to overcome them. I can also help with that. Develop a criteria to guide your art with identified goals. Demonstrate persistence in developing skills. So just keep going at it. Be persistent. I want you to use safe practices and visual organization. So use your tools safely. Be organized and reflect on artwork and revise. So at the end, we'll do a critique, and this is where we're going to reflect on our work. And with that, I would like you to use the vocabulary we're working on, and here's our vocabulary. So when we're going to critique, I'd like you to use the vocabulary like proportions, and if it's a landscape, a perspective the artist is using, what kind of composition, what mediums are they using, are they using negative space or positive space? So when we're doing that, I would like you to use the vocabulary. And also remember our principles of art, where we use balance and rhythm and emphasis and unity, movement, contrast, patterns, variety of proportions and scales. These are all, you're familiar with all these. your lines, form, value, space, what colors, and in this, vibrant, bright colors, textures, shapes. So when we critique, I'd like you to identify the piece and share your first impressions. Describe the use of your basic elements. Analyze and use basic principles. Interpret meaning and the artist's intent. Express your opinion. And with this, I'm going to allow any kind of medium you like. You could use pastels, paints, clay works, paper mache. If you're more of a computer, you could use art programs and create, digital art. If I don't have it in the classroom, we can go find it. I'll do as much as I can to accommodate what you'd like to do and how you'd like to create it. So that kind of is up to you guys and how you do it. And when we're doing this process, feel free to ask your peers, ask me any advice you may need or questions. But I'd like you to research the topic, make a draft, refine the draft before you start your art, getting into your paints and colors. And if you have questions, if I'm not available, write them down and I'll come to that. I encourage you guys to see the process of each other's work as we're working on these, and try to understand their perspectives. There'll be time for you guys to ask questions and gain ideas and knowledge. It's always good to look at your work from various perspectives to get a composition to achieve your goals in this. I want you to create meaning in this, so it can be a story, it could be a made-up story, something that you've seen before, or if you've, a self-story, or ideas that you think would put your meaning and purpose out there. I want to see how you feel about this topic and what you can come up with. There's lots of different cultures out there, but the same thing is we all have feelings, we all have emotions. And so all those, if you have a cultural belief or you want to put into maybe depression in Alaska Native arts, how would you visualize that and present it? Let's see if there will be no judgment in this from anyone, from myself or other students that will not be in this classroom. This is an opportunity for learning and everyone to understand and use their feelings and know that they're valid. And I just ask that you follow the learning outcomes and work your hardest on and create something that's meaningful and has purpose and that you're proud of. I want this to be a learning experience, so I'll focus on keeping us moving forward so that we reach our goal in 3 weeks. I don't want you guys bored, and I don't want anxiety over this or being stressed. So if there is problems, do let me know. If anyone wants to share their views on this social issue to myself or the class as a whole, that is more than welcome, and I'd love to hear what all of you have to say, and give you the opportunity to express yourself. I think this topic is a great aspect of art for students, for you guys to explore and build in your fine arts knowledge. Let's see if I have anything else here. Oh, with Vincent van Gogh, so there's the mental health aspect, but there's also, there could be causes for his mental health, and I got to go to my other slide for this, but there is some reasons he maybe was having the struggles he was having. Well, okay, I can't find it now, but he could have had a mental illness. He could have been struggling because funguses can cause mental health problems, allergies, I had a list here. I'm looking. This is kind of a new aspect. Okay. So he could have been caused by, another one is syphilis. And his ear, where they were talking about gangrene, his friend was a very, he was very well with swordsmanship. So, and in the video, he talked about how they would get in deep conversations, and this could have led up to foul play. So that's another theory. And his death too might have not been suicide. It could have been accidental. But again, for this project, we're going to go with the mental health because that's what you're learning in health class. And there's lots of theories out there, and we just don't know. It was in the 1800s. We just don't know in the early 1900s. And the well-known theory is that he was struggling from mental illness, and that could cause a lot. There's a lot of different ways to see mental illness. One is like PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Any traumatic event could cause you to have triggers that bring up your traumatic event, and so you could struggle very, very hard with that. And so in your project, you might show the trigger feeling or what maybe was a trigger. Depression, I mean, even a self-portrait or you're crying or you're just very gloomy, that could be a way to express this. Attention deficit hyper disorder, this is where you're hyper focused on and various tasks, or you are easily distracted. And how could you show that in a piece? Anxiety disorder. What causes anxiety? What are stressors? Could you put that in an image? Bipolar disorder, which they believe Vincent van Gogh has. You have really highs and lows. So you're not very stable. You're either very energetic or very tired and down. There's a lot of different things with that as well. Eating disorders, maybe why you're not eating, what maybe brought this up. Also, what the ones I just talked about, how can one get help for that, or what does help look like? Maybe going to a therapist, or like an eating disorder, having a meal time or a very organized plan of nutrition. If there's any questions, do let me know. Again, like the mental health crisis, there's mental health crisis hotlines and all that if you're struggling. But if somebody's having an anxiety attack, what would you do to help them? What we've learned is sitting and talking, and if help is needed, breathing, calling 911, breathing, getting them water. So you could show that in your piece. Maybe if you had a friend or a family member who struggled, how did you help them? What could that look like? Or just if you research, you can see a lot of these disorders will have a month of the year that it spreads awareness, and there's different ribbon colors. So you could put the ribbon and show what you're meaning in that aspect of how to put it out there and what can you do to help. And at the end of this, what we're going to do is, well, for the critiquing, we're going to use our vocabulary and our principles and our elements of art. And we're each going to present our piece, and then we will ask for questions. And this is where I would like students to answer using the vocabulary and elements and principles, and giving their opinion and impression and even perspectives. Something you liked about this, but it needs to be positive. We're not putting people down that this isn't done right or you should have done this. We want to be positive and show. But I would like you guys to definitely use the post-impressionism, where you're not blending, you're using multiple colors, bright, vibrant colors, to actually make the viewer imagine what you are portraying. So we're not looking for realistic fine lines, detail. We're looking at a way to trick the mind into seeing the picture. And then so we'll go through everybody's and critique them. I'll grade you. This is, if you've put forth effort, your grade will be great. If you show meaning and purpose and understanding in this assignment, you'll do great. No worries. And then at the end, we're going to have a art show here in the classroom. And what we'll do is you can invite your parents. We'll have the health teacher here. Because this is a sensitive subject and you guys have to have a parent signature, permission slip to do this, just like in health class. We're not going to invite other students in here because we need to know that their parents are okay with it. So it's going to be with our art class, our health class, ones that have a permission slip already. And then your parents, and of course I will be there. And I really can't wait to see what you guys come up with. Here's my question mark again. What can you create? I really look forward to it. If any struggles come up, I'm here. We'll work through them. I'll try to accommodate anything, and I just want you guys to actually work with what you feel most comfortable. If it's pastels, if it's the computer, if it's painting, if it's clay, whatever you feel comfortable with and that you can present your piece, that's what I want you to use. And I mean, we're open to anything here. The point of this is to be creative, show meaning and purpose, and that you're understanding the post-impressionism, you're understanding the mental health, and you're understanding also your viewers that are going to be seeing this piece, and even abstract. Your purpose is to create emotions and feelings. So it doesn't have to be, like Vincent van Gogh's Starry Night. It doesn't have to be something realistic, even though post-impressionism is a lot of still life and realistic scenery and pieces. But in this project, we're gonna have an open door on that and be very flexible. Let me just make sure we have it all. And then throughout the assignment, as the weeks go by, I'm going to be checking in with each and every one of you, and just seeing where your progress is, do a little brainstorming with you, and if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them the best I can. I just want you to feel comfortable throughout the process. And again, no anxiety. This is just a project that I think will be fun and exciting and really be able to help you express yourself and your knowledge, and also create awareness for mental health, and that will carry on with you even after you graduate and move forward. It's an important topic in our U.S. and around the world even, and mental health. How do you take care of yourself? What's your way of a healthy mind? So, and I will get started today. I'll like you to go and research the topic. Post-impressionism, go research the artists I've talked about here. Start your planning, get some ideas, and do a little brainstorming. And then we'll move into like the rough design and revising that design, and then eventually producing it. I know you guys are 10th graders, so you'll have really high quality craftsmanship in your work. Again, incorporate your meaning and understanding. Spend time on this, learn and explore your different avenues, and have fun with it. It's art, it's expressive, you're telling about yourself in your piece, and I really look forward to seeing each and every one of your assignments and working with you through this, all right? Well, thank you, and we'll see you tomorrow.